What is up, everyone? Welcome and welcome back to my channel. It's Minnie, and it's another episode of Mini Rambles. Today's topic is listen to understand, not to reply. And as per usual, you can watch this episode on YouTube or listen to the podcast version on Spotify. And without further ado, let's just get right into it. Do you listen to understand or do you listen to reply? A lot of us still don't know that there is a big difference between the two. When we talk to someone, of course, the communication goes both ways. But what goes into the conversation is not as simple as it seems. When someone is telling you a story, explaining a situation, or whatever along those lines, do you think about what kind of reply that you will give them after they're done talking? Or instead, are you focusing on what the person talks about? If you're doing the first one, then you are listening to reply, and I am guilty of this all the time as well. Sometimes we don't realize that a certain way we react to someone's story can make them feel unheard. Now, I'm pretty sure you have experienced something similar too. It's not very nice when you talk about something and you feel like the other person is not really listening to you. Replying to someone is not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're thinking about what you want to say after instead of listening to the other person, that is when the other person might feel unheard. So instead of thinking of what you're going to say next, just focus on what the other person is saying. This can be difficult because the standard way that most people communicate is by listening to reply. I personally struggle with this too sometimes, so I look for an effective way to make someone feel understood. And according to an article in Lifehack, there are mainly 5 things that you can implement when you are listening to someone to make them feel heard and understood. Number 1, pay attention. Focus on what the person is saying, how they tell the story, basically just listen intently. Number 2, listen with the right body language. Turning to look at the person, leaning in, making eye contact, and doing an open body language can make them feel like you're actually listening. Number 3, don't interrupt. Personally, I think this one is the most important thing because let's be honest, no one likes to be interrupted, right? Let them finish talking. Number 4, repeat what they say. Summarizing what they said to you can show that you are actually listening and do understand what they are saying. But don't overdo it though, it might get annoying for some people. Just make sure you're showing that you understand. Basically just like, oh, so you mean this and this and this and this? Oh, okay. Basically just simple as that. And number 5, respond. Now, after they are done talking or telling you the story or whatever, you can respond. But don't forget to be respectful and honest in your response. Always respond the way you want to be responded if the role was switched. Now we have talked about what it looks like to listen to understand. But there are other ways to make sure that the other person feels heard. This is particularly important when the other person you're talking to is telling you about the problem that they are having. First, do not deflect or try to make a joke out of it. Sometimes when we don't know how to respond when someone is talking about their problem, a lot of us might think that making jokes intended to cheer the person up is a good thing. But unfortunately, it is not always the case. Sometimes when we make jokes to cheer the other person up when they are talking about their problem, they could feel like their problem is not as important to us. Instead, what I usually do is show empathy first. Show that you are there to listen and that they can pour their hearts out. After they seem to feel a little lighter, then maybe you can lighten up the mood by cheering them up. Second, try not to tell about your experience or someone else's experience, even though the problem is similar to the one that they are having. A lot of times, we might be tempted to tell about our own experience when the other person is facing the same problem. Like, you might have that experience when you're talking about a certain problem and the other person is like, oh, yeah, I have that same experience too. Or my uncle had the same problem too. And they ended up talking about their story instead. Doing this could make the other person feels like you're shifting the focus. You're no longer focusing on their story, but instead you're focusing on yours. Of course, it's okay to share stories because similar problems might have similar solutions. However, make sure to listen to their problem first and share when the other person is already at the capacity to listen. If you want to be sure, you can always ask if it's okay to share your experience. And last, this is the most tricky one, and I'm sure a lot of us must have done it at some point. It is giving unsolicited advice. When someone is talking about the problem they're having, many of us go right away into the fixing mode. And instead of just listening intently to their problem, we would end up just giving advice after advice. However, sometimes a person just needs someone to confide in, to listen to their stories. In most cases, they might already know the solution to their problem and they just need someone to lend an ear. The easy way to avoid this is just to always ask before someone tells you a story or a problem. Like, do you want me to just listen, or do you want me to give you advice, or something along those lines? By asking them what they need instead of just assuming, the other person would feel heard and the communication would be more effective. Listening to people might seem like a small thing, but when done correctly, this could help strengthen the bond in a relationship. It doesn't matter if you're not doing it perfectly, because we all make mistakes all the time, but make sure to always try our best to make people around us feel heard. That's all for today's topic. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I wish we can all learn something from the topic that we talk about today. And thank you so much for watching or listening. I'll see you guys on my next ones. Bye!